Hello, BookTube. I have a small mail haul here. I was Skyping, and I'm ashamed to say that when I heard the doorbell ring, I lost all control. My only defense, I offered it to poor Steve Partridge, who I interrupted when we were Skyping, and I offer it to the rest of you. My only defense is that I don't believe any of the rest of you would have done any different. If you knew that the doorbell was not somebody selling you vinyl siding or preaching Jesus, but rather was someone standing there with a smile on his face and an armload full of books for you, I think you would probably have bolted upright too. And that's what I did. But it's not very big. I shouldn't admit this. I had a fairly big mail haul this morning that I opened on camera, but it was a Skype camera. It was from one person. I don't mean to get you all up in arms. I will defend that action only by saying that person works at the Vatican. Okay, and he's interested in a batch of new American books. I promise I'm not two-timing you, baby. We'll go through with this now. We'll see what we have here. I don't think that this year is going to have a Steve book more thorough than the Grand Strategy of the Habsburg Empire, or a book that I didn't open on camera from a couple of weeks ago, The Dogs of Camelot, about the Kennedy family's dogs. I got so much crap from friends of mine about that book, but still, we could have lots of good stuff here. Oh, great! Okay, fantastic, wonderful. Okay, this comes out in the summer, yes? No, in May. It comes out right around the corner. This is Chasing New Horizons, inside the epic first mission to Pluto. Let me read you about this. On July 14th, 2015, something amazing happened. More than 3 billion miles from Earth, a small NASA spacecraft called New Horizons screamed past Pluto at more than 32,000 miles per hour, focusing its instruments on the long, mysterious, icy worlds of the Pluto system, and then, just as quickly, continued on its journey out into the beyond. Nothing like this has occurred in a generation, a raw exploration of new worlds unparalleled since NASA's Voyager missions to Uranus and Neptune. And nothing quite like it is planned to happen ever again. Certainly not under American auspices. The photographs that New Horizons sent back to Earth graced the front pages of newspapers on all 7 continents. Not quite sure there's a newspaper in Antarctica, but maybe so. And NASA's website for the mission received more than 2 billion hits in the days surrounding the flyby. At a time when so many think that our most historic achievements are in the past, the most distant planetary exploration ever attempted not only succeeded in 2015, but made history and captured the world's imagination. And this is the story of that exploration, and also as much of the data breakdown as has yet been done. A handicraft of man flew by Pluto. And this is a book about that. I think that's just endlessly fascinating. So good. That's an excellent start. Let's see what this next one is. Okay. Didn't request this, but this looks fascinating. This is a finished copy? Yes. Okay. It looks like okay, it's a paperback reprint. Oh, okay. This came out last year, or the year before, but I never read it, I don't think. This is by Mark Rose, and it is Authors in Court, Scenes from the Theater of Copyright, which is a famous copyright cases. I remember reading about this. I don't think I ever read this myself. Salinger versus Random House, Harry Beecher Stowe versus Thomas. This has some famous. Okay, great. So who was this reviewed anywhere? I don't think it was. Oh, okay. It doesn't matter. I can't wait. That's fantastic. Okay. So, Authors in Court. Copyright battles in America. Of course, America was the ground zero for copyright literature because it was the worst offender. Back in Victorian time, those of you who are steeped in your Victorian literature will know the Victorian authors on both sides of the Atlantic were incensed by the American copyright piracy that went on just massively, in massive amounts. One of the legendary and lion-like Boston publishers actually made a name for himself, a favorable name for himself among up-and-coming authors, specifically because of how stridently anti-piracy he was. Boston led the fight, as it so often does. What do we got here? Oh my, okay, didn't request this, but I very much like the title. This is by Charles Rosenberg, and it is The Trial and Execution of the Traitor George Washington. Unfortunately, a novel. So this comes out in June. A What If? A thought-provoking novel that imagines what would have happened if the British had succeeded in kidnapping General George Washington. Okay. British Special Agent Jeremiah Black, an officer of the King's Guard, lands on a lonely beach in the wee hours of the morning in late November 1780. The revolution is in full swing, but has become deadlocked. Black is here to change all that. His mission, aided by loyalists, is to kidnap George Washington and spirit him back to London aboard the HMS Peregrine, a British sloop of war that is waiting closely offshore. Once he lands, though, the aid by loyalists proves problematic because some would prefer to just kill the general outright. Black manages, just barely, to get Washington aboard the Peregrine, which sails away. Upon their arrival in London, Washington is imprisoned in the Tower to await trial on charges of high treason. England's most famous barristers seek to represent him, but he insists on using an American. He chooses Abraham Hobhouse, an American-born barrister with an English wife, a man who doesn't really need the work and thinks the career-building case will be easily solved through settlement. And Washington's release. Okay, so he's expecting Washington to be released because the revolution will be over, I presume. But as greater political and military forces swirl around them and peace seems ever more distant, Hobhouse finds that he is the only thing keeping Washington from the hangman's noose. Drawing inspiration from the actual kidnapping plot hatched in 1776 by a member of Washington's own commander-in-chief guards, Rosenberg has written a compelling novel that envisions what would take place if the leader of America's fledgling rebellion were taken from the nation at the height of war, imperiling any chance of victory. It would not have imperiled any chance of victory. Competent generals would have stood forward instead. Generals who didn't need to be restrained by their subordinates from making lunatic decisions. Anyway, who's the author? Who's this Charles Rosenberg when he's at home? He's the author of the legal thriller Death on a High Floor and its sequels. And he's a credited legal consultant to shows like L.A. Law, Boston Legal, The Practice, a great show, and The Paper Chase. Okay, so he's done a lot of lawyery stuff. And he's also taught at Pepperdine University, which non-Americans have to see to believe, campus-wise. Okay, great. Fantastic. So this is an alternate history of Washington standing trial for treason. All right. What an odd mail haul this is. All right, on we go. Let's see what this next one is. Oh, my. Oh, goodness gracious. More Revolutionary War stuff, only this time for real. This time is the real deal. So this comes out any day now. Looks like it's going to be a paperback original. Yes? No, it was out before. God, I must have missed it. How did I miss these things? Did I miss this? Oh, yeah, it's loaded with reviews. I certainly just missed it. Wow, that's bad. Wow, okay. All right, well, anyway, I'm glad to have it now. This is by John Oliver. This is The Swamp Fox, about Francis Marion, guerrilla warfare during the American Revolution. And there you've got, for those of you who don't live in this country, perhaps have never voyaged down into the South, there is a bayou. Those trees are living on moving ground, constantly covered in mucky, brackish water, loaded with snakes, loaded with alligators, loaded with them. Wow, so all right, this is the paperback release, and it's loaded. This thing comes covered in blurbs, so I just must have missed it. In the summer of 1780, the American Revolutionary forces were on the brink of defeat, as we just read. South Carolina had quickly become the most contested battleground of the war, and with the disastrous fall of Charleston only 3 months behind them, the British triumphed over rebel forces in Camden. Exhausted, sick, and starving, American militiamen broke rank as the enemy moved through the Carolinas in hopes of trapping Washington's army in the north. The stage was set for the final British attempt to stomp out the rebellion. And this is the story of the man, Francis Marion, who almost single-handedly stopped that from happening. And it's a great story. I've read many books on the Swamp Fox. I'll have to check my reading journal to see if I did miss this or if it just made no impression on me. I thought it would be bad either way. All right. Then we get to the last book, and then we'll be done with this. This is a pretty heavy thing. Must be a finished copy. What have we got here? Oh, no, it's not a finished copy. No, it's not. Oh, my. Oh, my. This is from Princeton in June. Oh, my. Okay, all right. This is Unfading the East, The Enlightenment's Encounter with Asia, by Jürgen Osterhammel, who did a great, great book. I wonder if this will give his... Okay, this gives his previous blurbs. We have a pub sheet here. He did a gigantic book called The Transformation of the World that was just incredible. Even in English translation, it was just incredible. And this is going to be his new book. Wow. Okay. So this is 700 pages long, and it comes out in late June. During the long 18th century, Europe's travelers, scholars, and intellectuals looked to Asia in the spirit of puzzlement, irony, and openness. In Unfading the East, Jürgen Osterhammel tells the story of the European Enlightenment's nuanced encounter with the great civilizations of the East, from the Ottoman Empire to India to China to Japan. Oh boy. Oh man, oh man. All right, so this is translated by Robert Savage. I want to read this immediately. And when did this come out? What is the story with this? This came out in 2013. Well, it's got to be God's own trouble to translate a thing like this, but still, we could have hurried that up a bit. Fantastic. Oh, wow. All right, serious, heavy-duty history. Finally making its way into English. That's great. So, Unfading the East, by a historian whose last book in English I loved. Then, The Swamp Fox, by John Oliver, in paperback, when I apparently missed the hardcover. Then, The Trial and Execution of George Washington, a what-if history, right along my lines, though. Then, Authors in Court, now in paperback, a book with famous histories of famous cases of copyright piracy in America that came out, and I must have just ignored it when it originally did. And Chasing New Horizons, a new book about the automated mission to Pluto and how it came about, and its travails and its near failures and its stellar success. Wow, fantastic! All right, very good. That I am assuming you would all agree that was a pile of books worth bolting up out of a Skype in order to receive. I hope you do. But I will wrap it up here, and I will be back soon. Thank you, BookTube.